Hi, today's topic is what is science and the idea of theory of knowledge. How do we know what we know? Let's start off with what is science. What is science? Science is a way that we look at explaining the world around us. So, from the beginning of time, it is human nature to ask the question why. If you've ever been around a little 2-year-old, every other word out of their mouth is why. Why is the sky blue? Why is the squirrel running away? Why does the dog bark? And as humans, we search for the answer to why. Originally, before we had true science, we used myth and religion to answer that why. Why do we have a pandemic? Well, the world's evil, and the people who are getting sick have done horrible things, and this is their punishment for getting ill. Now, as rational beings in the 21st century, we know that it's not because you were evil, it's not because of something you did, but back in the time of the bubonic plague, that idea of evil spirits, of going against religion, really made sense for the time that they were living in and the knowledge that they had. We have a different knowledge base today, and that knowledge base, that theory of knowledge, that knowing, is gained through the scientific method. So we ask a question, why do we have this pandemic? What is going on that everyone across the world is getting sick? That's our question. And so we start going through the scientific method with that question, and through the idea of the scientific method, we gain an answer to our question, or hopefully we gain an answer to our question. Just a little bit of refresher on what the scientific method is you ask a question, why the pandemic? And then you go through a series of steps to gather an answer. The first thing we do is look at research that's already been done. We start looking at journals. We start looking at, well, this is a virus, and what do other viruses do? And we can now PCR look at the genetic code of this virus, and we can say, well, it's like the flu, and this is what the flu does. And then we can start testing the idea, well, is it really like the flu? And we start getting experimental groups together, and we look at their symptoms, and we come up with conclusions. And then we put that out for peer review, and other people follow our methodology, and they either agree with what we saw or they don't agree with what we saw. And like I said before, it's okay for science to be wrong. And you're seeing that a lot right now, where we put out initial ideas, and we go through the whole scientific method, and we get to the end and we go, you know what, that's not it. And we start back at the research phase again. We start over. This is our idea of theory of knowledge. When we talk about biology and theory of knowledge and how do we know and what is science and scientific method, we have to realize that biology's got its own unique set of struggles. A hard part of theory of knowledge, a valid theory of knowledge, is peer review. So someone else has to do your experiment and get the same results using the same methodology. And not just one person. We're talking hundreds of scientists are going to go through your procedure. Is everything right in your procedure? Is this a valid methodology that I could repeat and get similar results? That's when we say it's been peer reviewed. Well, when we experiment with living things, there are some problems. The first one is every living thing is variable. No two things are the same. So even between two humans, let's say identical twins, they could have different biologies in their systems based on what they've been exposed to through their life for their immune system. And then we break away from twins that are identical, that have the same DNA, and we all have such different DNA that it's going to create variability. And what I might respond to for one treatment, someone else is not going to respond to. When we look at coronavirus, we see a huge difference in death rate. Well, what's one of the biggest factors here is age. And as people get older, their bodies have changed. And so what is going to work in one subset is not going to work in another because of our different biology. The other problem with biology, and humans especially, is that we are suggestible. So if you guys have ever heard of the placebo effect, where I've got two people who are sick and I'm going to give them a drug. One person's going to get the real drug and one person's going to get a sugar pill. And at the end of the day, I'm going to look at the side effects between the person that got the real drug and the person that got the sugar pill. And so they're taking this medicine, and every day they're writing down how they feel, and do they have diarrhea, are they throwing up, do they feel better? And I'm going to compare the placebo to the person who got the real drug and see, did the real drug actually make a difference? When my kids were little, whenever they said, Mom, I don't feel good, the first thing we would do is give them some magic medicine. It was actually a spoonful of honey. And that was my placebo. Were they really not feeling well, or was this they don't want to go to school today? If the spoonful of honey, the magic medicine, made them feel better, then it's all a mental thing. If they were still sick in half an hour, now we've got some real illness that we have to deal with. But if I say, take this and you'll feel better, chances are you will take something and feel better. It's like when my kids would go hand over knee on their bike and crash, and I'd go, hey, best crash ever. And they'd go, okay, I guess it doesn't hurt. Because I put in their mind that it doesn't hurt. So we are very suggestible. Between our different biology and me being able to influence how you feel by telling you how you should feel, it makes it hard to do scientific experiments. The last problem with biology and theory of knowledge and scientific method and using science to come up with explanations of how we know something is that we have this ethics. So, is it ethical for me to kill this fly that keeps buzzing around my face as I'm trying to film this? What rights does that fly have? Is it ethical for me to test a vaccine of coronavirus on rats to see if the rats survive before I test it on humans? Is it ethical for me to test it on monkeys if it survived through the rats before I test it on humans? Is it ethical for me to even test it on humans? This is what we're going to talk about today in our assignment. What are the ethical problems with theory of knowledge and the science of biology?